Wow, that's a really nice cavern. It's so great, I might even settle myself here. Let's see, the vault for the magic treasures would go... Darn it, always the best places. This might be a problematic episode. Not because of its quality, but because of possible outcome. I personally didn't think it might happen, but some people, including my friends, were initially afraid of the Philly Vanilla history repeat itself because of this episode. And that would be straight up dumb. Okay, this episode didn't do good for Pinky, she was pretty much hit or miss. But I don't think she was that bad. Besides, this story, more than Philly Vanilla, reminded me of other two episodes. Reason being is the fact that stories in it felt strangely familiar. Not exactly the same, but quite similar. Which is the reason I have problem with Pinky here, for making similar mistakes, just the other way around. For the most part when watching it, I feel like during Friend Indeed. Back there Pinky was trying to befriend and later apologize to Cranky, yet ended up stalking and invading his personal space. Almost like here, but this time she was stalking Maud and Starlight, so they both would become friends. Second is the Maud Pie debut episode, back where she was trying to make the main five to befriend Maud. Now she was trying to do similar thing, but this time she was forcing Maud to make friends with some pony. Both stories are not identical to this one, however resemblances are quite obvious, and each of those stories also share one element. Pinky trying to force friendship. I get it that she's doing that in good faith, because nothing can make you happier than having a good friend. Problem is, at this point Pinky should realize that friendship is not something you can force on someone. For me, it's a bond that is born naturally by itself. Okay, sometimes you can give it a gentle push, but even with those you need to be careful. Pinky's attempts are not even remotely subtle, pretty much to the point of trapping 3 of them in the underground cavern. Okay, we can assume that she was perfectly aware that Maud's expertise in geology and Starlight's magic can help them, but fact is the fact. Making friends with each other might as well be the last thing they could do in their life, if not for those little shenanigans with Sandstone. You know, I get it that Pinky really loves Maud and she wishes to spend more time with her. But sometimes if you really love someone, you have to let that person go. Attempting to force such decisions might actually bring results reverse to expected. And Pinky pretty much learned that the hard way. And that's the keyword here. She learned. Pinky realized when she messed up things and, hopefully, won't repeat it again. It's actually a thing that saves her in this episode from being a bad element. Pretty much that's the only weak element in this episode in my eyes. Not bad, but weak. I think the rest is pretty fine, and by that, the episode itself is fine too. And if Pinky is highlight of episode weakness, Starlight and Maud are the highlight of its strength. I really love the chemistry between those two, and to be honest, this friendship feels more natural than some other in this show, maybe even a bit more natural than how friendship between Twilight and the main five was born. These two, despite Pinky constantly interrupting, were getting along pretty well and have quite a lot in common. They pretty much get each other, because Starlight might be the only pony who truly understands Maud, while Maud can have an intelligent conversation with Starlight. You can see word friendship written on their faces. But this whole Maud involvement in enslaving the town, or her knowing the right rock and spell combination to rule the world, I call shenanigans on it. I hope. However, these two together are great, but alone they also shine. I'll be honest, her involvement got me by surprise. But this episode once again shows that Starlight is much more assertive and confident character than she was in season 6, while still keeping some insecurities. Something that feels more natural. And now we actually know a little bit more about her normal day, or her interest outside magic. Kites. I also like that moment when she was explaining Pinky what went wrong. You may say she was blunt, but with Pinky there probably is no other way to tell her that, so she would understand while also not breaking her heart. Although blunt, it was still a polite and also necessary bluntness from her. As for Maud, I always thought her love for rocks is just a comedy relief. But this episode actually shows that it's more behind it. That she is curious and loves to know the stories each one can tell. But what left bigger impact is what follows. The fact that she also has some insecurities hidden behind this stone face of her, no pun intended. Suddenly, she's not just a comedy relief who loves her sister, but a fleshed out character with fears and doubts. I liked her before, but now I see Maud in a completely different light. More I'm thinking about it, closer to home she hits me, but maybe let's not go any deeper into my head and focus on the episode. As a last note, I'm glad this episode didn't went the same path as Maud's debut episode with her and Starlight. We already have enough repeats of the history with Pinky. This time, the friendship was made through actual similarities between the characters and mutual understanding of their feelings, while also having some differences between those two. I honestly have a slight problem with this episode. Some people are claiming this to be the weakest of season 7 so far, but while it had problems, mainly Pinky, I wouldn't necessarily call it weak. However, I would also not call it great, because the fact that Pinky is making similar mistakes to those from 2 past episodes is a big elephant in the room. But on the other hand, we have some great characterization for Maud and a new bond of friendship between her and Starlight. And I may sound biased, but this episode also shows how much Starlight has grown and how great character she can be, while also not necessarily being a main focus of the episode. And honestly, I can't find anything wrong in this episode outside Pinky. I know it might hurt her fans and give fuel for those who dislike her, but truth is, even if she's not terrible here, this episode also didn't do much good for her. Well, maybe outside the moral, because I think between this, Friend Indeed and Maud Pie, this is the first time where she actually realized her mistake. Something that saves her. Still, if this would be the weakest episode of season 7, I wouldn't mind, because it's still good. Not great, but far from bad or weak. Pretty much high above average. I'm Sharpwit, and where's my golem?